This is Canon's XF200 camcorder. It's the successor to the very popular XF100 and, like that camcorder, can shoot 1920 by 1080 Full HD onto dual compact flash cards at 50 megabits per second with 422 colour. That's generally accepted as broadcast spec, though the camcorder only has a single 1/3 inch sensor chip rather than 3 half-inch or bigger ones, which would be ideal. It has a full, and we mean full, complement of physical buttons on the body, which makes access to all the relevant functions really quick and easy, with precious little fiddling about with on-screen menus. That's a vital time saver when filming events as they happen, such as news, where you can't control what's going on and don't have time to fiddle about setting things up. The camcorder is lightweight and compact, easily portable, so you can pop it in a bag and travel the world with it and accessories without any problem. That makes it ideal for all sorts of scenarios. But unlike the XF100, this now totes a 20 times optical zoom lens instead of 10, and that lens reaches from 26.8 to 576mm in the equivalent 35mm space. Like the XF's baby brother, the XA20, you do lose 2mm at the wide end when using one of the stabilisation modes though. The iris opens to f1.8 and can be capped to stop closing at f8 if you want to avoid diffraction issues. Also new on the XF200 are 3 lens control rings instead of the single switchable ring that the previous model had. Again, a huge asset for immediate control as you shoot. The focus ring in particular is easy to use and get precise adjustments with. Round the back there's an SD card slot for recording in progressive MP4 format at up to 35 megabits a second, and yes, that is simultaneous with the 50 megabit MXF files being captured onto the compact flash cards. Like the XF100, there's balanced XLR audio inputs with full control over channel assignment and audio levels. But the XF200 now boasts 4-channel audio, so you can also record the internal mics or a 3.5mm unbalanced external mic as well as the XLR inputs, which is a useful backup facility if nothing else. Ergonomically, the camcorder's improved too, with a rotatable handle which locks into 9 positions over 120 degrees of turn for easier hand-holding. On the back there's a clue to new functionality, with a hidden RJ45 Ethernet port. Inside, the XF also now boasts Wi-Fi for remote control, remote viewing and FTP file transfer, with much improved functionality over its baby brother camcorder, the XA20, in that at last you can actually select individually which files you want to send, rather than just all of them. You can even set up a queue of up to 5 MP4 files to be FTP'd as you continue filming. That's a very handy feature for news organisations. Annoyingly, you can only preset one FTP server. That'll frustrate any freelancers who submit video to several organisations. As already mentioned, the camcorder is festooned with buttons, and 13 of these are now assignable to different functions instead of the previous 10. Most of the buttons already have sensible assignments, such as toggling zebra bars, peaking, focus magnification and such like, but there's enough of them to leave you plenty of scope for your personal preferences, all customised through the menus. And if 13 buttons isn't enough, you can set up a customised quick access menu as well, so you're never far from your favourite settings. Both the flip-out screen and the viewfinder are vastly improved over the XF100, as both now boast 1.23 million pixels. Particularly in the case of the viewfinder, that's a huge increase. The screen is now OLED instead of LCD, and it's a very nice picture, though it is a bit hard to see in bright daylight, even if you toggle the screen brightness up by holding in the display button. As with the older model, there's an infrared recording mode. The inbuilt light for this is said to have a greater throw than before. Canon have included their now standard flip-type lens hood on the front, and there's space for a 58mm lens filter to go on there as well. Also unchanged are the auto ND filters. There's time-lapse, stop motion and cache recording, as well as slow and quick motion. 9 custom picture profiles can be set up and stored with a frankly mind-boggling array of parameters, each of which has its own subset of settings. In fact, configurability is one of the key assets of this camcorder, which sets it apart from consumer models. Pretty much everything can be set up the way you want it, from the operation of the lens rings to the coloration of the display and the adjustment of the audio, and plenty more besides. Whilst the XF200 does offer a 3.5mm headphone socket on the back and a 2.5mm lanc control port on the side, if you want Genlock and SDI output, you'll have to fork out extra cash for the XF205, but apart from that the two models are identical, just as it was with the XF100 and 105. So much for the specs though. What do the pictures actually look like? Well, here are some test shots taken in fully automatic mode on a very sunny day indeed, where the camcorder not only switched in the ND but also added -6 dB of gain and still had to close the iris to f8. For interest, here are those same images after a little very gentle colour and levels adjustment in the edit. Do remember that these won't look their best as you view them online due to the high levels of compression used in web video. Autofocus, should you wish to use it, is fast and accurate, at least in good light, and auto exposure's not bad, though you're always going to want to do this manually in anything other than a very general shot. The zoom is pretty fast for a camcorder like this, though you can also set it to an absolute crawl if you want, with 16 speeds in each of 3 different categories available. Stabilisation for handheld shots has been improved over the XF100 and is on a par with the XA20. You get 3 modes: standard for wide-angle stationary shots, powered for telephoto stationary shots, and dynamic for wide-angle moving shots. It's on this mode that you lose 2mm off the lens, so the wide is 28.8 here. As for low light performance, Canon have worked some bizarre magic here, whereby even though the XF has the same lens and sensor as the XA20, it can see much better in the dark, as these tests demonstrate. Now, be careful how much noise reduction you use or permit the camera to add though, as anything above about 8 out of 12 smears the image quite drastically to smooth out grain, and by the time you get to top whack, it's a horrid mess. Thankfully, Canon has included a waveform monitor to help with exposure, and this can also be toggled to show a vector scope and an edge monitor for focus assist alongside image peaking. A BP955 battery is supplied, which claims to give 255 minutes life when fully charged. There's a one-touch power save button on the side of the camcorder which puts it into standby, from which it can be instantly reawakened. You'll notice on the bottom and handle of the camcorder that there are cooling vents, and inside there is a fan. This can be on all the time or set to turn itself off during recording. This noise may worry some, but panic not, it's not that audible. Here's a recording from the top mic with the fan off, and here's what it sounds like with the fan on. Of more concern is that you're not supposed to obstruct the vents, but when you've got the tripod plate on and your hand in the strap, you are inherently blocking the air intake to some degree, so this looks like poor design on Canon's part. Flash banding, that half-frame mess you get when a camera flash goes off, is inevitable on most CMOS sensors, so it's no more a problem on the XF than any other such camcorder. And Canon seemed to have sorted the additional flash problem that affected the XA20, where you'd sometimes get half a second of shimmering after the flash. We couldn't make that happen at all on the XF. Now, there are some frustrating limitations, such as exactly which MP4 formats can be recorded at the same time as MXF. If you do the dual codec recording, you're more limited than if you pick one format or the other. There's no low bitrate interlaced format for dual codec recording. Now, that would have been useful for TV news crews to send back mobile footage for broadcast rather than web use. You don't get a last clip review function when you're in dual codec mode, and it's played minus the sound, so it's pretty much useless anyway. Staying on this theme, you don't get cache recording when in dual codec mode, but you can set the MP4 to continuous record while you start-stop in MXF. The focus magnification button is handy but surprisingly awkward to reach with your index finger unless you brace the camcorder with your left hand so you can loosen the grip in your right. And one really annoying aspect is that the waveform monitor doesn't show up in the viewfinder. So on a bright day when you can barely see the screen and really need the scopes to help set exposure, you can't see them. So, is this camcorder worth the money over the XF100? It does have substantial improvements, but it's double the price, and Sony have just brought out their PXW X70. Now that's really an XA25 competitor, but could easily fit many uses for which people would be considering an XF. So this camera's advantage basically comes down to that broadcast standard codec and the multitude of buttons. If you don't need those, the Sony X70 is over £1,000 cheaper, and that could be a killer blow for this Canon. Thanks for watching. If this video was useful, then please do click the like button, and of course do subscribe to the channel for future videos. Don't forget also to check out tubeshooter.co.uk for loads of video news, reviews and features. Bye bye.